In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen.
Hi, Max.
And I'm Glenn. Nice to meet you. How you doing tonight? Welcome to WoT the Adaptation. We're the reviewed show that reviews adaptations from one form to another, right here on YouTube, just for you. Tonight, we start off a new series. We start with Netflix's The Sandman, Season 1. Max, what can you tell us about this episode?
It was written by Neil Gaiman several times. David S. Goyer did a teleplay, as well as Alan Heinberg.
Goyer, by the way, so you know.
And then it was directed by Mike Barker.
And the episode was titled?
Sleep of the Just.
Okay.
And yeah, a lot of stuff happens, mainly some cultists, if you want to call them that, capture dream instead of death.
Yeah.
And we get a tale of 100 years.
I loved being introduced to this because I hadn't seen it until I knew that you were going to be adapting it. So I actually read the comic first before I saw the film. Was the last, like, or keep saying film, the TV show, the episode was the last thing I saw. And I was like, when I heard the premise, I'm like, what could possibly go wrong? A whole bunch of people trying to trap death. There's nothing that could go wrong with that.
No.
Nothing ever bad happens with that. The premise was funny. Anyway.
In another multiverse, they captured death, and it was bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's like pissing Thanos off.
Mm-hmm.
So, what'd you guys think of the show? And hey, we're also, so the audience knows, we are going to be discussing the audio drama adaptation that was narrated by Neil Gaiman. Rick, what was the, Max, can you look up who the director of that was?
Of the audiobook?
Yes, it stars James McAvoy. Kevin Smith's in it. There's a whole bunch. No, Kevin Smith's on the show. I'm sorry. Or is it the audio? No, I think he is on the audiobook.
Audiobook.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people. And it's just, it's great. It's one of the better audiobooks I've listened to.
Yeah. I knew that it was a really
Andy
good...
Serkis is in it.
Yep. Andy Serkis is in everything.
The other name attached is Dirk Maggs. I'm not sure if that's the guy you're referring to.
Yep, Dirk Maggs. That's who I was looking for. I couldn't remember the first name, and it was Maggs. He's a producer. Dirk Maggs had approached a long time ago Neil Gaiman, and the two of them have been working on it forever, and finally they got it to go. And I'm happy because my first experience with this story was watching the show. Then I listened to the audio drama, and then I read the comic book. And
it was flipped.
I was the inverse, the reverse. I really liked it. You know, the season overall I really liked, but this episode I liked a lot, and I gotta say, in some ways I like it better than issue 1, which was also titled "Sleep of the Just."
Yes,
which I want to talk about later.
So I was introduced to this because it was free on Audible. I think it might still be free on Audible. Like, you just have Audible and you get it for free.
Yep.
Me too.
You're happy with it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the audio drama. It was, I was like, oh, this is a good one because you could hear like the noises, like the door slamming and boots walking and stuff like that.
Music.
I'm like, oh, this is a better, yes. So it's a better quality. So for those that would be interested in that, it's a very good. I don't normally do audiobooks, but when I do, it's very immersive. So it's good. It's good.
I don't usually do that kind of audiobook or dramatization. Most Star Wars books that are done in audio are just like that. They have sound effects, lightsabers, blasters, crowds talking, and music. Very, very Star Wars music. So it's like, those are pretty cool. But I noticed that the audiobook at times is literally word for word what's on the page. And then they add to it. They add a whole lot of context. They add some exposition. They add some stuff just to increase the tension and the drama. and in a way the spectacle, because just hearing a couple of those pages, like this, just wouldn't be as good if all they did was the page, and the audio drama added onto it.
Well, it's like the comics, you have the images, but they give you the sounds.
Yes.
So they have a different way of working with that.
And
obviously this, we get the visual.
It's real fun to read the comic and listen to the audio at the same time. I've done that twice now for issue 1, and it was fun. And that's where I noticed that there are minutes worth of dialogue and sound and music that have been added in the audio that aren't in that. Whereas the TV show changes a lot of stuff. And it's because the medium's different, and audiobook is trying to stick as close to dialogue as they usually do to dialogue that's in print. That's just how it goes. But TV tries to go a bit more natural sounding dialogue, because very few writers, even the best of writers, don't always get dialogue that sounds like people would actually be saying if they were talking.
Right.
TV for a long time fell into that category too. But I think TV, and part of it's the actors, they've gotten better at it. I think it's easier on TV nowadays to make the conversation seem more natural when you have to change the dialogue to do it. And that's what they do with film. And like I said, I think I like this episode better. There's a lot of things that I like more. But for you guys, were there any particular changes that you enjoyed or didn't enjoy?
I can say one that I didn't enjoy.
What's that?
I don't know if I would say didn't. It was just different. The whole him shooting Jessamine outside of that they only did in the show, not in the book or comic, audio drama or comic. I think what they were trying to do is obviously we're full spoilers here. So and
there will be spoiler warnings if we spoil later in the TV show, later in the audio, or later in the comics. So don't worry.
The scene where Dream is still within his little glass bubble prison, and there was a whole thing where Alex has to shoot Jessamine, Dream's familiar, or that sort of thing, like that what
Jessamine
they were doing.
The Raven.
Correct. Yes. And when the Raven is pecking at the glass bubble, Alex takes a shotgun and shoots the bird. So I think in the comic and the audio drama, they didn't have that. Dream just punishes Alex without, Alex just freeing him and that sort of thing. So I think they wanted to give viewers in the TV show, this is just a guess, this is completely my assumption, this is my opinion, but I think what they did is they tried to show viewers a sense of why they want for you kind of root for Dream. And at that point, Alex seems such a downtrodden, hurt figure that is being hurt by his dad. If he punished Alex after Alex frees him at that point without anything else on screen, you would be like, well, that's mean, that's cruel to do to Alex. He couldn't help it, he was just a kid and he was scared and that sort of thing. So it gave Dream more of a reason. Well, you shot my bird. He even says that to Alex. So that's why I think they did that, which makes sense, I think, for viewers. Yeah.
I think one of the things they were doing with Alex throughout the episode, aside from him shooting Jessamine, they were trying to make Alex more sympathetic.
Yes.
Yep. And
so
go ahead.
Now that you bring that up, that is something they do on the TV series, is they're trying to make these villains more sympathetic throughout. Every single villain, they try to give them some kind of sympathy. And I want to say the comics they lack a bit of it.
Yeah.
They make you not
Burgess
give you any sympathy.
Abusive. Burgess isn't abusive of his son in the comics, and his son's also 16 to start, not 6, when we first see Dr. Hathaway bring the book. But even before, all building up to Alex shooting Jessamine, the show's striving to make us sympathetic with him. It's like we feel bad. And I mean, his argument was, when he was a teenager, before he killed his dad, you know, it was like, I'd let you out if I could, but I can't. And it's like, I can't let go of the ears of the lion, because when I let those ears go, that lion's turning around and it's eating me, you know? And unfortunately, the reason I got my hands on the lion is because of my dad, you know, the Magus put my hand, so it's not my fault, but the lion doesn't care. And so I can understand why Alex was hesitant, resisting the idea of letting this being free. I mean, it's like freeing it and you don't know it, you know, it just, no, he really was safer just keeping it in prison. And I don't blame him one bit.
So I would want to mention on that sympathy note, when that doctor first meets him, and he talks about his son dying in, I can't remember the location. He says his other son also died, and that line is missing in the comic. He does not say that at all.
There is no,
and that's
Randall,
that's a sympathy line of him trying to make him go, "Oh, your son died, so that's why you're trying to get capture death."
Yeah, and the thing with Randall was also to force home how little he thinks of Alex, because Alex is the spare, and Alex was the unwanted, probably maybe a mistake or an accident, unexpected child, obviously a late in life child. Yeah, you know, so he didn't like Alex, and the whole thing with Randall just slammed that home even more. Was it Randall who died at Gallipoli, I think, and then Dr. Hathaway's son, I don't remember where he died. He died somewhere else. He was on a ship that sunk. That's what it was. His ship sunk.
Yep.
What do you guys think of the ceremony, the summoning ceremony, compared to the book and the audio?
Here in the darkness, here in the darkness. I hear that in my sleep.
Yeah.
There were random changes mainly for content.
Yeah.
So like some of the things they mentioned, some were 1-to-1 from the comic, but then they just randomly don't mention like putting the nail in the eye, dead man's eye. They don't mention that.
Yeah. Stick of wood, a stick I stuck into a dead man's eye. I do want to wonder how. I do gotta wonder how the hell he managed to pull a wing off an angel's wing.
Yeah, I wondered that too. I was like,
well,
really?
I would say it's metaphorical.
Yeah, I know. It's how the wizards keep their secrets. They make, you know, like alchemists. Actually, it was the alchemists who did that, naming things weird.
Yeah,
like an eye of a newt wasn't really an eye of a newt. It was this, and only the alchemists knew that term meant this. You know,
I think it's a
Toa frog.
No, I'm trying to think of the term. Not a prelude, but it goes to a future episode about the hope and hell.
Okay.
So it's like metaphorical, and that's how it relates to that future scene. So the feather isn't a literal angel wing, obviously, but
right. Any other changes that you guys want to mention anywhere?
I did like that we didn't get these 30 different plot lines in the first chapter that we got in the book / comic. Yeah. Where we had all these various stories of these people's lives and then how the dream affected them. We had basically Unity's story, kinda.
Yeah, like we saw Unity.
And there were like maybe a couple others, but in like the comic book, there were a lot of random stories. And in the audiobook, that first chapter kind of got like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, in the audiobook added to, and then the show just drops all of those.
Yeah.
But speaking of those two things, there was a scene I really liked in the audio that's based on like 3 panels in the comic book, and none of that happens in the panels. And it was totally dropped from the show, which breaks it away from the title of the episode, because that's where the title of the episode comes from. It's Wesley Dodd's story. In the comic, they just show him in costume out on the streets, and they don't really say much. In the audiobook, they play that out, and he saves some lady from getting attacked and knocks some guy out. They do the whole thing and the exposition about him. And then one of my favorite lines in the audiobook, "That's not your purse. How do you know?" doesn't match your shoes.
Your shoes. Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I laughed when I heard that.
Yeah.
The other change I'd mention is he never really talked about, I don't think he really talked about Crowley. Because he was obsessed with some guy, Crowley, who was an actual real figure.
Yeah.
All stuck in the
Aleister
cultist stuff.
Crowley.
Yep. And they just kind of, ignored that in the show, obviously.
True.
And
good point.
I almost want to say it's kind of a good thing, because who the hell knows who that is anymore?
Yeah.
Unless you're really into the gothic horror, the Lovecraft. You're not gonna know who the hell he is anymore. Changes I disliked. I want to say honestly how the father figure died.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was a big departure from the book and the audiobook. And I just don't know. It feels like it was too on the nose. Like having him just die from a heart attack versus getting his head bashed in. And his head bashed in and that whole thing, like, it's a summoning circle, and how that thing has not been destroyed, why they showed it through all these incidents, the bird getting black. To me, that's a major plot hole. It's like all that blood on the thing, it should have been destroyed multiple times here.
That's true.
And they kept bringing back these incidents that happened right next to the circle that they managed to clean up the blood spills without destroying the circle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a plot hole.
Maybe they were painting it on as they cleaned it. I don't know.
Nah, Max has a solid point.
Yeah.
I like that.
There's another hole with the TV show, and it's more apparent when you meet another character in an episode or two, a few episodes. But the show, or in the book, he's only imprisoned for 70 years. On the show, he's imprisoned for 100 years. Now, yes, they do establish that keeping this stuff in the house will slow your aging. But then the stuff gets stolen after 20 years. And then he lives in the show, he lives another 80 years after that without the thing. And he was six when they captured Dream. So he would be 106 when he dies at this point. Paul would be old. I'm not even sure I don't think Paul was even there in the book or the show when the stuff got stolen. So I don't know so I don't know if he's getting the benefits of the slowed down aging, but he's still around, and he's not that much younger than Alex, and Ethel is still around. Yeah, she's got the stuff, so she's going to be slowed aging. But her son, he's not really that old. The actor they playing him isn't anywhere near as old as you would think he would be, with the timing of the way the show's done. And also, a spoiler alert right here with this name, Unity Kincaid. How the heck is she alive and so young if she was nowhere near Dream's stuff?
Well, maybe
I'm trying to remember, did they actually give a year when he escaped? Because he just said a century, but he didn't actually.
But they made it clear that it was 100 years.
Well, yeah, I know he said a century, but I don't know if they actually gave a year. Because
it would be 26. It would be 2016 because he was captured in 1916.
Because kind of spoiler, the episode where he meets the other immortal guy, or makes whatever. No, not the Endless. The guy he makes immortal.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't he meet him in the 80s? In the bar. I thought they gave a year on that. I'm pretty sure they gave a year on that episode.
That's one of my favorite comics. Did they even do that? They didn't even do that episode.
Yeah, they did.
On the show. Did they?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I watched this. Okay. That's when.
So we'll keep track of that in the future to see if they mention a year, because I want to say he arrives at the bar in the 80s.
That's when,
and he's not there.
Back in time.
Yeah, that's where Joanna Constantine's ancestor, Joanna Constantine, is introduced.
Yep. Because I remember him coming to the bar location, and I want to say he rebuilt it or something.
Yeah, I think it got
in the
rebuilt a
show.
few times.
And I want to say it was like 1980 or something. He arrived there, and either he wasn't there or something else happened. It's been a while since I saw the TV episode. But if it was 1980, that'd still put around that 70 years he was imprisoned.
Yeah, but that was just. I don't know. They made it clear on the show that it was 100 years, and everything I've read about talks about it and takes it as a given that it's 100 years on the show, which just messes up the whole thing with Unity. Spoiler: we should be done with that. No, Glenn, you can stop that edit. What did you guys think of the production side of things?
Oof.
The visuals,
Beautiful.
costumes, scenery.
Oh yeah, when he goes back to his palace and his home, the huge gates, when he opens up like this massive, beautiful gates that he opens up, and it's showing the world. And I like how it begins where you start, I guess, as Jessamy flying through like the world where Sandman lives and his kingdom
Even
and
at
that
the
sort of thing in its prime. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
They blew a
When
lot
she
of their
watches-
budget doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Hathaway's standing there in his dream on that bridge, just looking out at the wonders, the landscape. Yeah, that was a cool.
So it's funny that, like in the audiobook version, where we have all those 1,000 stories about these people throughout the world, they just changed that to this dream sequence.
Yeah.
So that's how they swapped it out.
I like how they did that too. It was very cool. It was very magical. It brought you right in. It brought you like, okay, I'm getting ready for a high fantasy story here. So
the doors and walls around his palace are just ridiculously tall.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Oh,
like the Hoover Dam is your front door. Like,
I think you could.
parting it.
It looks like you could get the Empire State Building to go through those gates. So, I mean, them walls were tall. I'm like, what? Okay.
It's like, what is the counterbalance on that for those doors to open at a touch? It's kind of like, how do you get that? Like,
I just gotta wonder what invaders he's trying to keep out, or is he trying to keep people in?
Either
is
way.
it a prison?
Could
or
be.
Is it a refuge? Could be both.
Could be both.
Yes.
So we're all pretty much in agreement that visually and all that stuff was just was superb.
Well, it's like when he was in the room with the guy's son at the end. If you look up, like the walls are just rippling.
Oh, I like the big globe in the guy's house. That's what I want in the show. There's a big globe, and it kept coming back to the globe. And
there was one prop I was hoping to see that gets mentioned in the audiobook. You don't see it in the comic, and that's the hand of glory, or the dead man's hand, where it's the hand where the fingers are turned into. You've played D&D long enough. You know that. It's got a different name in D&D, but yeah, you don't mess with those things. It's just
I love glory hands. They're awesome. Yeah, they're solid fixture in fantasy. So it's very interesting.
But they had that in the audiobook, and I was disappointed they didn't include it, unless I missed it somewhere as a prop.
I didn't see it.
In Burgess's house. But checking some of my notes here.
I like Malik's coming in with the Aleister Crowley facts and the whole blood and circle and sort of thing.
Were there any scenes in particular that you liked?
I like seeing Tywin Lannister. I mean,
Charles Dance.
He did a very good job. He always plays the asshole, doesn't he? He does a very good job with that.
He does a very good bad father thing.
He does.
I think I've seen him play a nice guy once, and it was weird. I don't remember what it was, but
I think so too. I was like,
he was not Tywin Lannister, worst father of the decade.
I have Brienne of Tarth coming in later. Spoiler alert. So I'm like, this is like Game of Thrones like takeover. No, I'm playing. No, but all of the scenes with him were very well done. The one piece of acting I don't know if we're on that part yet. I may wait. One piece of acting I didn't like. I'll wait till we get to the question. Okay. I believe it is a question later, so I'll wait on that. Okay.
For me to like just scene I probably like the most in this episode was basically his escape.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that set was nice and warm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that poor actor must just have been miserable being
Mhm.
on set cold all day long,
Mhm.
you know, and
Well,
naked.
if he's a method actor, it's perfect.
Yeah. For me, I really gotta say, I kind of, like I said, or mentioned earlier, I loved the summoning ceremony. I just thought it was really cool looking and well done, and it was spruced up nicely.
Mhm.
And I love it, even though it's edited with something that I don't like the way it's all edited together. And it's paired with the scene of Morpheus trying to undo the Corinthian. And the way it's edited and put together, he disappears from well, they start the ritual. They're like maybe a third of the way into the ritual, maybe halfway. And then Dream gets sucked away from the Corinthian. Then we go back to the ritual and they finish the other 2/3 of the ritual. And then Dream shows up. I'm like, the editing of that, it's like the causality, there's a causality problem there. The summoning wasn't completely done to have him disappear, so why'd he disappear? You know, and it's totally in the editing. Possibly the director's fault for telling the editor to do it that way. I don't know, but that's that's my favorite scene, and also the scene I dislike.
Mhm.
But I also like the scene where when Ethel basically talks her way into getting into the Burgess estate during that
That was
party.
very good. That was very good acting on her
Ethel
part.
was I liked Ethel in this episode. She
Mhm.
was pretty cool.
Mhm.
She was trying to play Alex, but she didn't
Mhm.
realize her playing Alex wasn't going to work because of the reasons she thought it would work. It worked because he was just dumb nerd trying to be nice. But
Mhm.
she was trying to get him, like, pretty lady trying to talk to a 16-year-old boy and get him, oh yeah, I'll do whatever you say, you know, kind of like Celine with Rand.
Mhm.
And it just didn't work that way, which I found funny. But I liked that scene, so I include that. So we've done scene or sequence we most remember, enjoyed, or hated. Best or worst actors, and I'll start off. I mean, it's Charles Dance all the way. It's unfair. It
Yeah.
really is unfair to compare anybody else's acting to his, unless you
Yeah.
bring in somebody like Shohreh Aghdashloo from The Expanse, which
Yeah.
I mean, it's just she's a goddess. You can't outact her unless maybe you're Charles Dance. So
Yeah.
man, that would be interesting.
He played a curmudgeon very well with his. He even shook the cane correctly, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. It wasn't too overacted. It was like, "Rawr." Like every time he came on, it reminded me of Ebenezer Scrooge, but like different. Like it was really funny. It was good. He did a very good job.
Maximus?
I'd have to go with, aside from Dance, because you had to take the best actor.
Yeah.
Boyd Holbrook as a Corinthian was pretty decent from the bits
Yeah.
we got of it in this episode.
Yeah,
He
I
has
have
this
to agree with
pretty
you.
good menacing capability.
I have to agree with you on him, more so because of later episodes where we get to see his work. But what he did here was pretty good. I liked what he did. Did you have anybody other than Charles Dance, Jen?
Ethel was pretty good, but I really enjoyed Charles Dance a whole lot. And the actor that plays Dream has the brooding Twilight stare down.
Yes.
Definitely.
I also kind of like.
He does it very well.
I didn't catch his name. I'll have to look it up and I'll put it up on screen. The kid who played teenage Alex.
Yeah, he did.
He was good. And we got him more than anybody else.
I also like the child Alex too. He was
the 6-year-old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go give honorable mention to Jezame.
Yeah.
And the train in Glenn's background.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh yes. Hopefully it's gone now. You guys can't hear it. I can still hear it down the way, but just a little rumble. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that, guys.
That's funny. Can you hear that? I'm like, yes.
So, was there an actor you didn't like?
I'm gonna have to go with there's one scene of an actor that I agree with you. The Corinthian was great, but it was what I was saving actually to the thing that I didn't like. This is what I had been saving. It's funny because Chris and I said the same thing. When the Corinthian is at first in front of, like you said, that whole scene where that breaks away from bringing in Dream, and then he goes and he's like, please don't kill me, and he's begging for his life on his knees in front of Dream. I was like, Chris and I just looked at each other. We're like, okay, that was very bad acting. When he's everything else, he was very menacing. He did some menacing very well. He did great. He's wonderful. But like that scene, particularly, that whole entire thing with you didn't like it, the editing choice of Dream flashing in and out. I also agree, not only for that because it was confusing, but also the fact that he's like begging. I was like, okay, fam. And it just did not go over for me. It actually took me out of the spectacle. And I actually was removed from the Sandman for a second. I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. It was like bringing down the fourth wall. It got shattered. It was so bad for me. But I don't know. It was just that, if you haven't, I know Glenn, you'll probably go rewatch. Just rewatch that. It was not good to me personally. That's all. Everything else he did great on, though. He's very menacing, especially when he hears that Dream is back and he turns around from the window, and that was good. I just didn't like that particular scene. Anyway, yeah, that's it. I did not like it at all. And I never say that. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say on that is like when you actually see how powerful Dream actually is, like he couldn't do anything if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
All he can do is
No, I get that he did it. Just the way he delivered it wasn't very convincing. That's all.
The Corinthian is involved. I didn't bring this up earlier, with a scene that's a major change from the book that I really like, and that's when he shows up the next day at Burgess's and does the exposition dump. I actually think that was one of the better exposition dumps I've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made Burgess not look as smart of a magus as the comic book has him, not knowing, being able to figure out everything. But I think it worked for the show.
Too.
Well, when you bring that up, I have to mention that I feel like he set them up for failure.
How?
Because if you're going to build this giant contraption to put him in, like, well, first, that's a lot of access to possibly kill that circle. Getting these workers in to not hit that specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't do anything to protect the circle around it.
Mm-hmm.
Even like a little 2-inch ring of metal bolted to the floor around it so you don't scrape it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They couldn't even do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways I'm thinking up all kinds of ways. And you could actually step across. You could step on it, but you're not stepping on it if you put a platform that goes up and then over, so it's like that far off the ground, so like a little riser. But do these magic circles have to be visible? Could you, for instance, tile over it if you didn't mess up the circle itself and have the circle still work? Don't know.
It depends on the world they're using and the
dungeon master or the writer. Yeah.
But like I said, there are tons of ways they could have protected that without disturbing it. But like I said, it felt like it was purposely made that way by the Corinthian to him, setting him up for failure to release Dream for whatever reason.
I like that, Max.
So that takes us to the meat of the episode, preferably. Let's discuss the themes that were in this episode and this issue of the comic.
Betrayal. That's
definitely.
Mm-hmm. That was whether the Alex trying to betray his dad, Ethel, Ellie, forget which. Those old lady names. I forget, like the Ethel. That's right. Yes, of her like stealing all of Charles Dance's, aka Tywin Lannister, aka Burgess's fortune, turning traitor on him. What's going on between Dream and Corinthian, and how he was trying to set him up, like what the entire premise, how it begins with Dr. Hathaway coming in with the book because he thinks that he's found a kindred spirit, and how they've lost both of their sons, and now he was just being used for what he could bring from the museum. There's a lot of betrayal going on in this episode to me on those different fronts.
I have to mention that in the comics they mention that regarding betrayal, that because he gave them the book and they captured Dream, they were able to betray him by basically looting the museum of all their treasures relating to the occult.
Yeah, because they've got the blackmail about him giving them that book. Which, speaking of the book, did you guys happen to notice an issue with the way it was spelled in the comic and the way it's pronounced on the show? And if you watch the credits, the way it's spelled, or not credits, but subtitles, the way it's spelled in the subtitles?
I did notice the way he pronounced it, and the words were like, that did not look right.
I did
One
some
of those
research.
is wrong.
They're not, though. Here's the thing. Spelling-wise, it's the Magdalene Codex or Grimoire or something like that, but it's Magdalene, as in Mary Magdalene. It's named that because it's attached to Magdalen College at Oxford. And at the time, Magdalen College, which is spelled Magdalene, but it was pronounced closer to Magdalene. I can't quite, I don't remember the exact way it was pronounced because I was reading about it. At the time Oxford was created, the way they pronounced Magdalene with that G and everything, the word was Magdalene. So the college is Magdalen College. There's a couple of the things that are associated with the college, but anything else in England that's not associated with the college, even in Oxford, is pronounced Magdalene. So if it's associated with the college, it's Magdalene. If it's not, it's Magdalene.
I agree.
Any other themes, Max, that you have?
Well, I mentioned earlier that they were really trying to play into the theme of like sympathy for various characters throughout this. Obviously you have Corinthian trying to appeal to sympathy to get him to not get, taken away. You have Alex, his character being all kinds of sympathize with me type things going on.
Yeah.
Even the old man had sympathetic arcs to him initially as you see how bad he gets. And that kind of also relates to that whole idea of you have these characters that are somewhat dubiously good or bad, but as the episode goes on, they're just going to keep getting worse and worse. Like you have no sympathy for them at the end of the episode. And we see that in several episodes later. I think one example of that is the episode, tell me how it's spelled, the Muse episode.
Okay.
Which is a character that starts out one way and like they just keep going worse and worse and worse. It's that slow corruption.
We'll be talking about that in let me check my calendar.
Like
January. Yeah, but that particular storyline, we'll be talking about that episode in January, the end of January, probably. So, the first theme that I wanted to latch on to was obviously a fear of death, which everybody can understand. I mean, most of us are afraid of death most of the time, or at least part of the time of our life. Some people just get over that fear and live without it. But it was so inherent in Burgess's actions, so inherent in Hathaway's actions because he wanted his son back. Alex's actions in the book, more you don't get as much of Alex's fear of death in the show. I mean, it's still there, but it's not like it is in the book. And Sykes, obviously, his fear. I mean, he had a legitimate reason to be afraid of death because his head was going to blow up. That wasn't pretty in the comic book. Could have been worse, but it still wasn't pretty. So I've got the fear of death. Tied into that is the driving hunger for power wealth, and immortality
Mm-hmm.
does not end well.
No.
Does not end well for any of the people who we see, and some of this goes outside of this issue in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the people we see that have this driving, insane lust for power, wealth, and immortality, they have a bad end.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that, because it's like that. Isn't that the basic theme of H.P. Lovecraftian Gothic horror?
Never read any of his stuff or watched any of it. The closest I've come is
feel like that's their
Cthulhu
big running
game.
theme in all their stuff.
Yeah. I played
power
some really
and bad endings for you.
But yeah, we see that it doesn't end well for those who have this lust for power. And the other one I saw, and this is too can be tied in many ways in many of the situations to a fear of death, and that's desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Burgess is desperate to live longer, and at the end recover his wealth. Alex is desperate to get rid of the threat that Dream is, and it's before his dad dies, he doesn't want it. He knows it's a threat, and he's scared of having him there. He's desperate to get rid of the Endless, but can't let go of that lion's mane, those lion's ears. Dream, I mean, he's desperate to get out of this prison. And we find out that the dreaming was desperate for him to come back at the end when we see how bad it is. Even Ethel, she was desperate. She left because she wanted to keep her baby. And she was desperate to keep that baby. It led her to fleeing her sugar daddy, but having to steal a whole bunch of loot from him, which, I don't blame her one bit. I do want to point out that's not how it happens in the book. She takes off with Sykes. The book has Sykes stealing Burgess's woman, the items he stole from Sleep, and the $200,000 in money. I have to wonder if part of the reason why they dropped that is to avoid the appearance of racial stereotyping. Sykes is in the comic, he's the only non-white character other than the kid down in Haiti that, who's having the sleep problems. And in the comic, he rips off the guy he worked for and betrays him. So it's you bringing up your betrayal. He betrays his boss, his Magus. And I could see that if they kept that on the show, some people might take that poorly, that the one black guy is a thief and a woman stealer and all this other stuff, and it's just like they made a point of being diverse in their casting, which is great. And I think that they kept him as black because he's black in the comic. Why change it? But don't make him look as bad, maybe. And I don't know. Does that make sense to you guys?
I would say it's more about just not giving him more storyline.
I agree.
As the episodes go down.
Okay.
Because if you use that argument, you could say, well, they're just making her doing sexist trope against her now. So it's like, if you make that argument, you can keep going down this rabbit hole of, they're doing it for this reason. I mean, you can also make the argument about his son and his lover.
Oh, he's gay in the comics,
a bad guy
too.
a gay guy.
He's gay in the comics too.
Yep, I know.
It's there.
Because that can be a negative connotation in some forms of horror. Guy,
it's one of the big complaints about Dune. That's one of the big complaints about the book Dune, is that Baron Harkonnen, he's got two traits associated with him on top of being evil. One, he's grotesquely fat, and two, he's gay as hell. And then you make him the villain monster. A lot of people have complained about that over the years. And I don't know.
It has its validity in various points, but it's like you got to be careful in these rabbit holes, because like in this we have, if you make the argument about Sykes, then you could have to make the argument about making her the villain of being this thief lady running off
think
with.
I think she's the victim there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing a villainous act, but she's trying to protect her baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's not villainous.
Yeah.
Spike's, on the other hand, taking off with Ethel, the money, and the treasures. That sounds in the comic, that smacks of pure greed. It's that drive for hunger, power, wealth, and immortality, and it didn't end well for him.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think it goes more towards the whole narrowing the cast down.
I think
Future
see
episode.
what Max is saying.
Yeah.
I agree with Max.
Future episode of Hope and Hell. Who did he have a contest with in the book compared to the show?
I don't recall offhand. I'd have to rewatch.
Because
I watched it a while ago, and then I haven't. I'm watching them one episode at a time.
I want to say his contest in Hell was against Beelzebub, and not.
Oh
Lucifer.
yeah, Beelzebub is who Sykes gave the treasure, gave the helmet to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the show, they condensed it just against Lucifer.
Yeah.
In the comic and the audio, Sykes calls him Lord of Flies. So wherever that is, Lord of Flies is who he gave the helm to.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I think they're just condensing the number of main actors. So,
but he dies. He would still die this episode.
Yeah,
they would, and they also got rid of the eye, the magic human eye that protected him. They made it the ruby. They gave all that power onto the ruby, as we'll see in a later episode. But I don't know. I don't quite think it would. It wouldn't have changed the length of this episode. It would have just been, instead of her taking off by herself in the car, it's her and Sykes taking off in the car. And then, we still see him after she takes off at Burgess's house. So, it's not like they would have saved money by not having him filming anymore. They would have still, the one scene back, at maybe one other scene on top of it, but one scene back when she's with the baby, and have Sykes there with her when she's talking to the baby.
I think it's more they're playing off, like Max said earlier, the sympathy card as well. Just like you said, you see her as a victim thing. So they're, I think it's twofold with what Max had already previously brought up on both fronts. One, maybe cutting down the storyline, and I guess for that character, not the fact that he's in there more. Obviously, he's in subsequent future episodes, but just making it more, you immediately relatable as to why she's doing this. You completely understand she's a victim. It's also playing off sympathy. It's why Richard Burgess had a son, which he didn't in the comic. Roderick, sorry, yes, his son was named Richard. That's why I got the two mixed up.
Randall.
So Randall. Okay, I'm getting my R's mixed up, but
it's
I'm
okay.
getting my R's mixed up, but the point. Where I'm going with this storyline. That's the same. So they brought that up for sympathy. I can't even say it now. I'm all flustered. They brought that up for sympathy, and they're playing off the sympathetic. She's about to have a baby, blah blah, he's so mean, and that, like, they did the whole thing with Alex killing Jessamy, and that's the reason why you feel sympathy for Dream. Like, they're doing these things, and Alex killing Jessamy was definitely not to save money, because there was budget having that CGI Raven just pecking and then him shooting and all that sort of thing, and Lannister out there, Burgess out there, like, trying to fire at the shotgun and everything. That took time to actually film and shoot, but, like, I think it was just more, again, playing off that sympathy card as well for her.
It lets you create this emotional connection, and when Dream finally gets his revenge on Jessamy, it's going to strike better on film than
it's character motivation. Like, why would Sykes do that? You wouldn't see you wouldn't agree with Sykes taking all that as much as you would agree with her doing it.
Did he really have much role in this episode?
No.
I just can't remember,
but he didn't have much
there.
Yeah, he was there. He did have a few lines, but there's one theme that, even though it's the title of the episode, it's not as pervasive in the episode as it was in the issue. And that's because we lost out on Wesley Dodd, Wesley Dodd, the one who's going out at night dressed up with a green business suit, a gas mask, and a gas gun, and being a vigilante on the streets and calling himself the Sandman. And it says that he can't sleep unless he goes out and does this. Then he comes home and he can fall asleep in bed and sleep the sleep of the just, which is the episode title. But he's not in there.
I can probably tell you why he's not in there. Because we did miss, well, besides that, we did miss a whole plot line involving some of his stuff, I believe.
He hadn't, but see, this guy had nothing of dreams. He had nothing of Morpheus's.
Yeah.
He was just, it was the dream world trying to replace, make a Sandman, but this guy did a Sandman in a totally different manner than what, the Sandman really was. He interpreted it his own way, and went out and played Batman with a gas gun and a gas mask, But where else in this episode does the sleep of the just actually thematically fit?
It doesn't.
They kept the title just to keep it matching the graphic novel, the comic book title issue, is all I can think. But they dropped the theme that ties into that title by dropping the character that gave us that theme.
This is true.
We got plenty of Sleep of the Innocent. We don't know how just those people who are sleeping are, but we know they're the innocent. At least most of them are the innocent, we could presume. Anything else anybody wanted to bring up about the episode?
Well, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Since we're on episode 1, is there an episode we're looking forward to based on like the ones you liked in the comics or the books? Like, was there a chapter you liked the most from the book or audiobook that you want to see into that?
There's an episode I loved, and I loved that section of the audiobook, but I'll let John go first.
I was about to say I haven't actually seen all of the audio. I haven't seen all of the show
episodes.
So,
okay.
Episodes. So I don't. I'm gonna have to step out on this one. Sorry.
Do you have a favorite chapter in the book you want to see?
I just know that. Okay, I will say this. I saw where, well, Joanne or whatever, whether she's the Brienne of Tarth or whatnot, and so forth. I would just like to see that, but then again, that's probably because Game of Thrones or whatever. I want to see that scene or whatever. That's what I'm looking forward to. Is all I'll say. There we go. I'll put that there.
Glenn?
There's a really, really awesome episode that a friend of mine is nutter over. And I like it a lot, and it's 24/7. The one in the diner.
Yep.
That's a really good episode. But my favorite episode, and the one that just I feel the emotional ride on that one more, is The Sound of Her Wings. The one with his older sister. That story was just it was good to watch. It just really affected me. And I've got a friend of mine coming on as a guest for that episode. Matt Stagger X will be back. He doesn't just talk to him.
Yeah.
Max, what about
so for me, like in the audiobook, one of my favorite stories was A Hope in Hell. The one where they have the battle in hell. That was one of my favorite, but I also liked this one, and Glenn mentioned the scene with death. Those were my two favorite scenes in the audiobook that I was really hoping to see would be possibly good on the TV show. And hopefully it is.
Have you watched the entire season, Max?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have not, so this is going to be interesting.
I'm just double checking my notes real quick to make sure I brought up anything that I actually feel like I need to, other than, my whole disappointment at losing, Wesley Dodd. I liked his story. Let me check my audio notes. The audio dramatization, I really liked the addition of Dr. Hathaway doing his journal entries.
Yeah.
Part of that, I just love Anton Lesser's voice. He's the guy that played the creepy maester or former maester on Game of Thrones that worked for Cersei, resurrected the mountain. Anton Lesser, and he's the head, one of the heads of the ISB on Star Wars Andor. So
much Game of
Gotta get
Thrones
it.
material.
and Star Wars material. Got to plug Star Wars too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
3 minutes.
Oh, I learned something, that the word that is spelled two penny but put together, so it's instead of the word two and the word penny as in number two, you put them together, it's pronounced tuppenny in England.
Oh.
I didn't know that. I was reading along and listening. I'm like, what? So I went and checked on, how to pronounce channels on YouTube, and they all said the exact same thing. So I'm like, okay, they're all in agreement. It's tuppenny. So I've got all my notes done and nothing that I need to bring up. Everybody else, you're all set.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you guys for watching, listening, and reading Sandman with me and chatting about it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys at home for watching. Hopefully you'll come back next week as we discuss episode 2 of season 1 of the Sandman on Netflix. And please leave us a comment. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and click that bell while you're at the subscribe button. And don't forget to be awesome.